Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to first off wish you guys a happy 4th of July. I am recording this video on the 4th of July, but you will hear it tomorrow, so, or maybe even not tomorrow, because people will view this video probably, after that, probably for a long time, hopefully, and I am here today to first talk about, I had a pretty good 4th of July. It was kind of frustrating, I volunteered to do the laundry today, because I thought it would be a good chance to just be alone and, try to get some work done and not just be stuck in my room, doing this work. And so I spent all day editing a scene for Drimp, and it was just like, ugh. Because what happened with this sequence and with a couple of sequences is I had these two actors or actresses, and, they showed up to film. And, they're probably some of the top people that I've worked with so far, but then they wouldn't get back to me about reshoots. And so I have these shitty shots that, I really hate that I have to use them because they look bad. And, I easily could have gotten, better shots if I had just gotten the opportunity to do reshoots. And so I've just been editing that all day, and, I'm still not finished with it, and then I was like, you know what, I want to watch a movie, and then I had to do a little bit of cooking. I did the brats. We had potato salad. The potato salad was not good. The potatoes were not fully cooked. There was no flavor at all. And, Safi even knew. And she, and this is bad, because how they talk about, the potato salad, that people bring to parties, people with a certain skin tone. And Safi even knew that the potato salad was bad. So she was like, I'm going to have to throw that out. We're remaking that tomorrow. And I also did the beans. The beans were pretty good too. And it was just a long and kind of boring day. I don't like holidays. I don't like them. I've never liked them ever, because it just feels like the world stops and there's nothing happening. And then you're just sitting around and you're like, ugh. You're just like, ugh. And so I really wanted to watch a movie. And I was kind of in an Owen Wilson mood. Owen Wilson, he's a great actor. I think that he's really underrated. I think that he's kind of goofy, but people kind of mistake that he's a bad actor just because he's got that goofiness and he's got that kind of weird charm about him. But as this movie shows, Midnight in Paris, which is my second to last Woody Allen movie, unfortunately, and his performance in this movie, I mean, he gave a grade A performance. If you watch this movie and you still say Woody, I mean, not Woody, but the character is definitely a self-insert for Woody Allen, which is not a bad thing. In fact, I will talk about that because, a lot of people nowadays, let's just talk about that now. A lot of people nowadays, one of their biggest complaints about modern art and modern movies is that main characters in movies are self-inserts. And what that basically means is that, if the writer of a movie inserts themselves into a movie, either literally or through a character played by someone else. And what's weird is that if you look through the history of cinema, self-inserts have always been in movies since the beginning of time. It's not something that just started in 2010. It's not just something that, happened 1 year ago and like, oh no, it's this stupid new trend. Self-inserts have been around since forever. Hitchcock, his self-insert was Jimmy Stewart. He thought of himself as that guy. Hitchcock did. David Lynch, he thought of Kyle MacLachlan as his self-insert. And then, of course, in Eraserhead, that character is totally supposed to be David Lynch. And in this movie, Midnight in Paris, you can guarantee that if Woody Allen was like 25 to 30 something years old, he would have played this character because the character that he dresses like Woody Allen, he talks like Woody Allen, he makes faces like Woody Allen. He's basically everything, but he's got that little tiny bit of Owen Wilson goodness in him. And so I just wanted to, again, because this is a constant thing nowadays. And it's so weird because it's like, because you'd think about, like, if someone complained about Midnight in Paris because, oh, well, the main character is a self-insert. Who cares? Like, the character in this movie is all about Owen Wilson is this guy named Gil, which, that's kind of a sucky name. And I think that was purposeful. And he's in this kind of like really situation. It's like a situation that on the surface, it's really cool. You're vacationing in Paris with your fiance. Your fiance is Rachel McAdams with blonde hair. And she's not a mean girl in this movie. And you'd think that would be like heaven. You'd think that would be like the greatest thing, but no. It is like hell. It is like torture. Because what happens is, you can tell that like she's hardly interested in him at all. And they had this friend. Of course, there's always got to be a friend in Woody Allen movies, like this guy who's kind of like a competitor against him, and he's kind of like that other guy who's like a little bit better than him. And so in this movie, you just hate these characters, and it's all by design, as we find out as the movie goes on. But like, it's just constant. Like, this vacation is basically like that friend like dating, like he's got a girlfriend, I think, and then he's like soft dating, I'll just call him Woody Allen's girlfriend, because there's even a part in the movie where like Owen Wilson's character, Gil, he wants to talk about something, he wants to give his opinion, and then Rachel McAdams is like, shh, I'm trying to hear him talk. And so she's shushing her own fiance so that she can hear this like uppity, snobbish guy talk about like, art. And it was just such like a negative moment. It was like, God, like that was horrible. You could just feel the positivity and the life in the room just getting sucked out of the air. And, Owen Wilson's character is so funny because in all of the scenes in modern day, he is completely out of place. He's just totally like stuck in this. It basically kind of seems like a prison. It's like like in every single scene, like you have these beautiful like areas, these locations, and these museums and shit. And he's just like standing there like, I do not want to be here. Like he's that little kid who's just like I did not sign up for this summer camp, you know, and he's just in every single scene in modern day. And it gets to the point where he's totally ditching his own fiance, because it's just like, oh yeah, you go off and do that. You know, this is my own Wilson impression. It's not very good. I'll just go do what I want to do. I'll just go do some writing, you know. And so what happens is that one night he stays out until midnight, and then all of a sudden this old-timey 1920s car picks him up. And basically every night in Paris, for some reason, in this specific spot, you were able to travel back in time to the 1920s. And so he travels back there, and basically the whole movie is all about him continuously going back to the 1920s every single night. And it's basically like he's falling in love with the 1920s as he's hating the present. And I think that, you know, this movie, there's a lot of things to talk about. But number one, it's such a universal feeling. You know, and he even says that near the end of the movie. He does a Woody Allen monologue to the other character, and he says, like, you know, everyone thinks that another time is better than the time that they're currently in. Everyone has their own golden age. And it's such a damn good point. It's so intelligent. You know, I gotta say, I have come around to Woody Allen so much that I'll say this: I don't care what Woody Allen does in his personal life. He can do whatever the fuck he wants to do, because he made this movie, he made Manhattan, he made Crimes and Misdemeanors, Hannah and Her Sisters. I mean, he is a genius. He is a masterful director, a masterful storyteller. He knows what to do. I mean, he is just amazing. In fact, I would go so far as to say, I kind of look up to him now, even more so than, like, Martin Scorsese or other film, like Steven Spielberg. I don't look up to him at all. But, like, yeah. So he did a great job with this movie, and yeah, he gets a pass. He can do whatever he wants. He can kill someone for all I care, and I won't care, because he made Midnight in Paris. So you heard me, Woody. You better go out there and just, you know, you can become the new Jack the Ripper, and I'll just be like, yeah, I'll I'll go watch Midnight in Paris again. Just sitting here in ignorance, because ignorance is bliss. You know, that's a famous saying, you know. So yeah, but anyways, back to the movie, because I don't want to get myself in trouble. I don't want to go too far, even for YouTube, even though YouTube doesn't even care about me. But yeah, like, so what ends up happening is that he ends up meeting all these different famous people from the 20s, such as Ernest Hemingway and T.S. Eliot and F. Scott Fitzgerald, Zelda Fitzgerald. And this movie is like hypnotic. Like, it is like, you know how the ending of Hannah and Her Sisters feels? The whole part where it's revealed that Woody Allen met up again with Holly, and then they get together and they're really happy. That's what almost this entire movie feels like. Almost this entire movie feels like that ending of Hannah and Her Sisters. So it is like a never-ending, like, hug, or like, just like, it's a comfort movie, this movie. There is some stuff at the end that I didn't like. I just kind of thought, and now here was the interesting thing, is that with all these Woody Allen movies, a lot of them, I've had kind of this opinion where I'm like, okay, like, this is good, or it's okay, but I'm not really sold on it. And then at the end, all of a sudden, he makes the point that the whole movie was trying to make, and he sticks the landing. And he did that in Manhattan. I hated Manhattan. But then at the end, when just everything exploded and it just stopped, he just didn't give a fuck anymore. That's when I thought, okay, this is a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. And with this movie, I was like, okay, I'm kind of worried now, because if I love the entire movie, is the ending going to be bad this time? Is that going to be like the big twist, like, oh, the one time the whole movie is just amazing from beginning to end, oh, of course the ending is going to be bad. And it wasn't horrible. It wasn't horrible. And it wasn't bad. It just was not great. You know, the ending, it felt kind of predictable. And it felt kind of like, this is kind of the issue that I have with Alice, which was a movie about, you know, this unhappy wife, and she has this illness, she thinks, and then she gets these herbs that give her magic powers. But that whole movie, it was very unconventional. And then all of a sudden at the end, it became very conventional in how it wrapped things together. And that's kind of what this movie did a little tiny bit. But I still love the ending. I still love the movie. It's not the fact that it's just... I think that it was unhappy by design. Because in the 1920s... he meets this woman played by Marion Cotillard, Marion Cotillard. He meets this woman. She's named Adriana. Okay, that's easier. Adriana. It sounds like a name that Woody Allen would make up. And he falls in love with her. So... it's funny because in the present, his fiance, her dad, thinks that he's having an affair, and he can't even tell. There's a twist at the end where she is actually having an affair with the friend, which is very, very apparent from just how they act and from how she's so disinterested in her own fiance, but she's so interested in him, and she just has all this time with him, whereas... you know, he's off in the 1920s, and but he falls in love with her, and so while they're thinking that he is having an affair in the present, he wants to have an affair in the past, and it's genius. It's like, that is the sauce that Woody Allen has come up with. This movie feels like a culmination of all of his movies. Because there's a lot of commentary in it about his work in general, you know, and it feels like there's this part where Owen Wilson, his character, he wrote a novel, because he is a writer, like Woody Allen. And he gives it to Hemingway, and Hemingway gives it to this Gertrude Stein woman. I'm not really familiar with her. I wasn't familiar with, like, all of the famous people, like, extremely. Like, I knew the names, but I didn't know, like, who they were. But, you know, I loved it. But anyways, what was I going to say? Well, she tells her, oh yeah, this is what, because you know how a lot of Woody Allen's movies, you know, they're very, very nihilistic, they're very negative, and then at the end, all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, actually, life is really great, and you should be happy about life, and you should, you know, savor it. Well, and don't worry, and, you know, all that stuff. And, well, Gertrude tells Owen Wilson's character that, like, as a writer, your job is not to put people in despair. It's to lift people up and make them feel good, or something like that. And it just felt like this is what Woody Allen thinks that she would say to him. And so it had this, like, epic feel to it. to where this really feels like, I don't think that Woody Allen's ever going to do better than Midnight in Paris. Because this feels like the culmination in all his work. It feels like there's elements too that, like, I don't know, like there's little tiny elements of other movies that he's done. There's even one that I haven't seen called the Purple Rose of St. Cairo or something, and someone said that it was kind of like this, and I looked up the basic plot, and I thought, yeah, that does kind of sound a little bit similar. And so, like, there's an interesting it kind of reminds me of Twin Peaks: The Return in that way, and that, you know, that was David Lynch's final project, his big project, you know, unfortunately, very unfortunately. And this movie feels like the perfect send-off for Woody Allen, even though he's made movies since then, and I haven't heard very much about them, those movies. So I hope that I hope he makes another movie, and I hope that the next movie is good. But as I said, he busted his load with this movie, with Midnight in Paris. He prematurely ejaculated his greatest movie. He spent all of himself on this movie. This movie's got it all. I was so hypnotized that, like, I didn't even care about the time. I was just glued to the screen. And I was like, I don't care how long this movie is. I'll watch this movie for, like, hours. You know, like, even though I'm done with the movie, I kind of feel like I want to watch it again, just because it was such a pleasant experience, except for some stuff at the end. And so maybe I should get to the end. Or actually, I did write a couple of funny lines in the movie, because with a Woody Allen movie, you know that he's going to write some amazing dialogue. Okay. Whoops. Sorry, guys. Okay, so there's this kind of joke of it. At first, Gil tells his fiance that, like, there's something really weird that's going on. And that's coming from me, Owen Wilson. So I'm walking on the streets of Paris at night, and all of a sudden, when it's midnight, I'm going back in time, and I'm talking to all these people. Ernest Hemingway, Scott Fitzgerald. I'm talking to all these people. And so, Rachel McAdams implies that, like, maybe he has a brain tumor and he's just hallucinating at night. And so the second night, he's waiting to travel back in time, and he stands there and he's like, he's like, maybe unless she's right and I need to see a neurologist. Like, just the way that he said it was so casual. And see, that was the bit that Woody Allen would not have said. In his version, he would have said, unless she's right and I need to see a neurologist. You know, because a lot of his lines are very like, I'm gonna panic and I'm just gonna talk like this. I think I have a fucking brain tumor and I'm just gonna... And but with Owen Wilson, like, a lot of his line deliveries, not deliveries, they're very casual. And so he's like, unless she's right and I need to see a neurologist. I love that. That was so funny. And and then later in the movie, he's talking with Salvador Dali about his situation. And this line, it's just, I think it should be on a t-shirt. Salvador Dali's like, you have very sad eyes. And he's like, I probably do look sad. I'm in a very perplexing situation. I mean, that is just, like, that's hilarious. I'm in a very perplexing situation. I mean, Owen Wilson, he is just, he's amazing. He's just so good. And he deserves an award. You know, like, I wish that he would have, like, his Oscar movie. The sad thing is that I think that if he did, it would have to be some stupid serious role. You know, like, this movie, it was kind of serious at certain points, and it had a real gravity to it, and it was just the perfect, just everything about it was perfect. Like, there are kind of some dangling kind of things about it, but, like, overall, but, like, you know, that stereotype of, like, when an actor does their Oscar movie, they have to do, like, oh, they've got to play a handicapped person. They have to pretend that they're in a wheelchair, or they have to pretend that they're getting a divorce, or that they have to do something really serious because then the Academy is going to take them seriously. And it's like, I think it's sad because, like, Owen Wilson in this movie, he gives an Oscar-worthy performance. I mean, when did this movie come out? 2011? Let me look it up real quick. Sorry, guys, but yeah, 2011. So let's look up who the fuck won the Best Actor Oscar. 2012, Best Actor. Who? Wait, who's that? Okay, so this guy named Jean Dujardin for The Artist. The Artist? What's The Artist? I never heard of that one. Oh, okay, it's like a black and white movie. Okay. Yeah. See, that's just very, like, Oscar baity. You know, like, it's black and white, but it's from 2011, and the poster just looks like The Godfather, basically. I mean, it just, yeah, that's disappointing. But, like, yeah, so you can see right there, like, Owen Wilson should have won, and some guy named Jean Dujardin won. And, you know, he is probably really good. I mean, I'm not giving the movie any credit, but, like, I haven't seen it. You know, I saw this movie, and this movie was a masterpiece. It was a masterpiece in the same vein of classic masterpieces. Because through the whole movie, it's all about nostalgia. And it's all about, like, what if you could actually go be in the past? And there's just something that was just so beautiful about the movie, about, like, the main character, you know, he didn't belong in the present. Like, you know, he says, like, I always thought that I was born, like, too late. And, like, just that feeling of belonging that he got from being in the past, it was so, like, it was just so, like, real, and it was so, like, just amazing. Again, amazing. And this movie was an experience. It was like an experience, and God, I wish I saw this movie in theaters, but this was 2011. I was only like 13 or 12, and I wouldn't have cared about these types of movies back then. I actually, at that time, my favorite movie was A Clockwork Orange, so, you know, actually, maybe I would have liked this movie, I don't know. A Clockwork Orange was, like, my thing back then, and then it became Fright Night, and then there's lots of other movies, but yeah. But as it goes on, it's kind of like, you know, the 1920s weren't perfect. I mean, they had the Great Depression, you know, in there. I mean, that's pretty bad. That wasn't in France, obviously, but still, like, they showed that, like, the people that, like, he idolized, they're not perfect. That's obvious. I mean, that would be, like, you know, an elementary school type of lesson. You know, like, anyone could figure that out. But just, I think that by the end of the movie, I don't know, he just realized that, like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to stay in the past? Am I just going to, you know, time travel to the past and stay there? And honestly, Woody Allen, You had a fucking movie where you acted like there were only 2 women in New York. I know that it's New York, but you acted like, okay, in New York, in all of New York City, you have a 17-year-old girl who, the actress, she was very hot after the movie came out. When she turned 18, she's actually, I think I've seen her before, but I still don't know what I've seen her in. But like, okay, so there's her, and then there's this other woman, and those are apparently the only 2 women in New York. And so, you know, he found out that or actually the less the less enticing one, to Woody Allen, I should say, she said she's cheating on him, and so he's like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm Woody Allen. I'm gonna go crazy. I guess I got to get with the 17-year-old again. You know, that was his resolution. Was like, you know, if you're in New York and you hook up with a 17-year-old, and then you hook up with a 40-year-old, if the 40-year-old cheats on you, you got to go back to the 17-year-old. And so that was his message with that movie. And so, you know what, Woody? You had that movie. That was a interesting message. I know that it's New York, but still, it was a message. So in this movie, despite the messaging that it might send, and the fact that the whole movie was about, like, oh, well, everyone always has their own golden age, and nobody's always happy because life isn't perfect, and life isn't always satisfying. But, like, seriously, you got Marion Cotillard in the 1920s. She's got a nice body. She's got a nice face. She's got a nice personality, which is just as important as the other 2 things I mentioned. And she's French, or I think, in real life. And she isn't in The Dark Knight Rises yet. She does that next year. So, you know, you have Owen Wilson. You have Marion Cotillard in the 1920s. And you better believe that if I were Owen Wilson, I wouldn't just cheat on my fiancée. I would leave my fiancée the night after I met Marion Cotillard's character, and boom, I would stay in the past. I would stay in the 20s. The Great Depression, it didn't last forever. I would ride it out, you know, like I would ride it out. I would just, you know, go where, you know, act like Neil Patrick Harris and Harold and Kumar, you know, I go wherever God takes me. You know, like, that's what I would do. Like, who fucking cares? Like, you're with Marion Cotillard in the 1920s. Like, that just sounds like the greatest thing ever. Like, so that's where the messaging of the movie really fails. Is that, you know, there is an interesting looking woman in the present that Owen Wilson ends up getting with at the end. And she is kind of like, you know, good enough for him, you know, because he's kind of boring and blonde, and she's kind of boring and blonde. But she is not Marion Cotillard in the 1920s. She is not Marion Cotillard level. And here's something else. We only spend like 2 minutes of the movie with this blonde girl. 2 minutes of the whole movie. And so we have no time to really get to know her and to like her. But basically everything that happens at the end, it's very, very similar to Manhattan, in that Woody Allen's character, he has this realization that, like, I've got to do things a certain way, and I've got to do what I want and chase what I want. Thankfully, in this movie, she's over 18, and so he does this whole monologue to Marion Cotillard, and you feel so bad because you feel like, God, what did Marion Cotillard do to you, buddy? Like, it's the 1920s with Marion Cotillard. But now, there was something I was a little confused with, because there was something about, like, I'm not too sure, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm not too sure if, like, if they traveled to another time and then Marion wanted to stay there or something, but, like, I don't think that they did, but I got a little confused there. But, like, I just couldn't believe that he left her. And then he went back to the present. The one thing I did like, there was this part where Gertrude Stein, she gives him back his revised book. And she says, I had Ernest Hemingway read your first few chapters that are revised. And he says, I cannot believe this simpleton has not figured out that his fiance is having an affair with the friend. And I was like, damn, that was just like such an amazing twist. Like, just thinking about, like, that would be such a horrible situation, but the fact that Ernest Hemingway figured that out and, like, gave that, like, manly advice, like, I would be so, like, enthused if Ernest Hemingway told me that my fiance was cheating on me. 'Cause I was like, you know what? Ernest fucking Hemingway gave me advice, and he figured something out that I was too stupid to see. And so he goes back to the modern day, and he just says fuck you to Rachel McAdams. And yeah, like, her character in this movie, I did not like her. And she is a great actress, because, like, I never thought that, like, she could play, like, a character that I really, really, really didn't like. Because, you know, I know Mean Girls, but in Mean Girls, you know, I dealt with Mean Girls who were worse than, you know, Regina George. And so, you know, that kind of character, she didn't really, like, irritate me as much, because I knew that they could be worse in real life. And I knew that, like, the character that she was playing was more of, like, a caricature rather than, like, someone that people that I dealt with. And anyways, after that, he goes off and he's walking around Paris at night, and then he just so happens to run into the blonde girl that he met for, like, 2 minutes in the movie. And yeah, it just felt a little too contrived. And that was the thing, that the whole movie was very, very much, like, chaotic, unpredictable, and just kind of, like, comforting in the sense that, like, he's traveling back in time multiple times. He's interacting with people, he's doing things, and he's not causing, like, stupid, you know, butterfly effect bullshit. And then at the end, all of a sudden, the movie's like, oh no, he's got to go back to the present, and he's got to be with this blonde girl. And, you know, I'm sure she's a nice woman. It's just that the character I could honestly not care less about, because we hardly got a chance to know her, and she is not Marion Cotillard in the 1920s. You know what I think that they should have done? They should have had Marion come to the present, and then they stay together in the present or something. Or they should have had Marion Cotillard play the blonde girl as a different character, so that it's kind of like a symbol for, like, you know, even though you could be with the Marion Cotillard of the past, there's always going to be a Marion Cotillard just for you in the present. Because honestly, the best romantic pairing in this movie was Owen Wilson and Marion Cotillard. It was not Owen Wilson and Rachel McAdams, and it was not Owen Wilson and that other girl. So, yeah, that's my big complaint about the movie. But overall, this is Just an endlessly incredible movie. I can't wait to watch it again. And I totally just love the experience of this movie. It was such a great experience to have after such a boring laundry day and editing day. Because, like, editing is the filmmaking equivalent of doing laundry. Because you know that you have to do it, and it becomes very, very monotonous, but you just have to suck it up and ride through it, like people rode through the Great Depression. Am I right? And so, in terms of food, I'm going to make you guys very surprised. I would rate this movie spaghetti with meatballs. Okay, spaghetti is my favorite food of all time. And so I only reserve spaghetti for what I think are the best movies ever. It's kind of like a cheat thing, because when I started out this channel, I was like, every movie's got to have a different food review, and it's got to be very specific, and we got to spend like 10 minutes describing all the different elements. But like, when things come down to things, like, spaghetti is my favorite food, and so movies that I think are some of my favorite movies, they should just get to be spaghetti. But here is the wrinkle. I do not like meatballs. I think that they're okay. I don't like them in spaghetti. I like to have meatballs by themselves. I like to just eat the, like Swedish meatballs by themselves. I don't like to have spaghetti with meatballs unless they don't have meat sauce on the menu or something. And so the big thing about this movie is the ending, because it feels like you go to a restaurant and you get disappointed because you think, oh my God, they're gonna give me spaghetti and meat sauce, Italian sausage on the side, but then the server says, sorry, all we got is spaghetti and meatballs. And you know that you have to eat it. And that is kind of the point in this movie, I guess. But again, even though, like, okay, he has to stay in the present. Okay, he really doesn't, okay? Because there is a detective. I forgot about this, because this is a great point. The dad of the fiancé has a detective follow him, and the detective disappears, and he goes all the way back to the bad French regime, before the French Revolution. And so at the end of the movie, he is trapped in the 1700s, and he is screwed. Like, he's they imply that these guards are going to chase him down, capture him, probably torture and execute him. And so Owen Wilson could have gone and stayed in the past too. I know that the messaging, I know that the messaging is really important, and that, everyone has their own golden age, because the present is unsatisfying, because life is unsatisfying sometimes. But, like, look, you know what, Owen Wilson, though? You know what? You can make the present very satisfying by going back to the past, to the 1920s, and hooking up with Marion Cotillard before she was in The Dark Knight Rises and it ruined her career. You can do that, buddy. You can do that, and you'll be totally okay. Christopher Lloyd did it in Back to the Future 3, and he turned out fine. I met Christopher Lloyd, and he was nice. I didn't really get to interact with him, but he was nice. So, I think he turned out fine. So I think you could have done the same thing. And you still could have had some kind of message about, like, oh, well, all of our presents are unsatisfying, all that crap. But, like, just go back to the past. Seriously, like, I am the devil on the shoulder, you know, like when you have like the devil and then the good guy on the shoulders, and they're both like telling the main character to do the opposite thing. But in this situation, if this were real, I would just stay in the past. But then again, he did make a good point. Owen Wilson, he said, I had a nightmare, and and this is the thing I think that a lot of people don't really get about this movie, is that I think that this was Woody Allen talking here. I think he would have had Owen Wilson's character stay in the past, but then his character talks about how he had a nightmare that he went to the dentist and they didn't have any Novocaine or antibiotics. And I thought, oh, shit. You know, like, but they did have gas, right? They did, like, gas you out, but, like, still, like, oh, fuck. You know, like, I think that for someone like Woody Allen, you know, I mean, he probably had that nightmare for real, and he completely lost his boner for Marion Cotillard, and he was like, you know what? Fuck that. Fuck the 1920s. I'm not going to the dentist without my Novocaine. That would be like torture. That would be like pain and suffering. You know, and so he was like, okay, I gotta change the ending. Owen Wilson has got to go back to the present because I don't want to go through that hell. And yeah, I don't blame him for that, but you know, the whole time travel thing, like, if you could genuinely just stay in the past, not cause any problems for the future, then why not? Why not? Like, if you found someone that you were happier with than in the present, then why not? Like, maybe, you know, the world isn't so linear, and maybe this is my Woody Allen monologue, is that, like, maybe the person in the past is the right person for you. And, you know, maybe your linear modern thinking, you know, like, do you really want to be in the modern age with, you know, these gross, disgusting people who, you know, I don't even want to get into the state of dating, the state of, like, society now, but do you really want to stay in the present with the types of people that are around nowadays? Like, I'm not talking about the people watching this video, but just, you guys know how awful it is out there. You know. You know. And honestly, things were much better in 2011. Things were much better in 2001. And I guarantee things were better in the years before that. And it doesn't have anything to do with nostalgia. It doesn't have anything to do with like, oh, well, I'm just nostalgic for, you know, another time because the grass is always greener. It's nostalgia with a reason. Like, when people talk about how you go to Taco Bell and the food is like expensive, and it's so expensive, but it tastes so bad. And you think about, damn, that's not worth it. So then you have to go home and you have to cook for yourself. And you know, and the point that I'm making is that, like, we're nostalgic for 2001, not because just for the sake of nostalgia, but because the price of bean burritos at Taco Bell was drastically lower. You didn't have to pay $5 for a chicken quesadilla. We're nostalgic for 2001 before 9/11 because 9/11 didn't happen yet. And they didn't have the Patriot Act. And you didn't have all these horrible presidents since 2001. All of them. So we're nostalgic for real reasons. And I think that the movie, for all the good messaging and all the good that it was, like, I would give this movie like a 10 out of 10 if I was talking in like a linear sense, like in a, regular, like, I don't give food reviews. I give, like, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. But, like, the movie really ignored how this character, he could have genuinely good reasons for wanting to stay back in the past. And there are genuinely good reasons that if someone from 2025 got to go back to 1925, there would be I would be perplexed. I would be sitting down with a pad of paper and saying, what are the pros and cons of staying in the 1920s? And then what are the pros and cons of staying in the 2020s? Because honestly, I think that the 1920s would win. I don't know if, like, Marion Cotillard, I think that she looks a lot better than the majority of women looked in the 1920s, because, I mean, it's not because that's not like a personal attack, but, like, it's just because of the fashion and because of the hairstyles and stuff. So I don't know if, like, necessarily, like, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about in general. I don't know. This is just, it's such a good thing, because every time you watch a Woody Allen movie, you're perplexed. You think. With Christopher Nolan movies, I hate Christopher Nolan, okay? I hate his movies, and I know that'll make me sound crazy, but fuck it. I don't like his movies. I don't like his style of filmmaking. I think he's up his own ass, and I think that he's full of himself, and I think that the movies he makes, they're so pretentious, and they're trying too hard to be something big, and to be something challenging and, confusing, so people have to think. But I think that Christopher Nolan's best movie is Memento. And that was back when he didn't have all the resources, and he had to make, like, a simpler movie. And even with me, okay, that's too much of a tangent, but, like, I will say that, like, I have learned that simplicity is better. For the most part, I think that it makes the art so much more freer, because if you make things too complicated, the making of the art gets complicated. But the thing that I love about Woody Allen's work versus Christopher Nolan's work is that Woody Allen just gives you these simple situations, completely different from each other, like this one versus Crimes and Misdemeanors, and he just makes you think, and he asks questions, and then at the end he gives you a long answer that you can either accept it or you can say fuck you. And in this case, I'm saying fuck you. Woody Allen, you said in Manhattan that it was okay to get with a 17-year-old because the 40-year-old dropped you. So I think that in this case, it's okay to go to the 20s and be with Marion Cotillard for the last time. So, Christopher Nolan's movies are overrated as hell. I'm not going to watch The Odyssey, or if I do... And no, actually, I'm not. I'm sick of watching movies that I don't want to watch. I know that's a part of being a reviewer, but God, modern movies just suck. They just suck so bad. And that's another thing, too. Like, that's another good argument for even 2011. In 2011, you have movies like Midnight in Paris. In 2025, you have Megan 2. You have Barbie. You have bad movies. And movies that feel like they're made by people who don't even appreciate art. And that's the thing, too. Woody Allen appreciates art. And he'll let you know that just with the dialogue between characters. And so, I think that that's why Woody Allen's movies have spoken to me so much, is that just because I can tell that he appreciates art, and even though he'll make some questionable choices narratively with his movies, I know that he knows what he's doing. He's a mature adult. He writes movies that feel like they're written by adults for adults. They're made by adults. They don't feel like they're made by children that think they're adults. And yeah, I don't know. This movie, it was something. And I can't believe I did a 55-minute review. That's crazy. So please like this video and comment. And what did you think about the movie? And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon for Annie Hall. Bye.